Good evening, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 15th, 2022, around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about this evening, including Tropical Storm Fiona and what impacts it is expected to bring to portions of the Leeward Islands over the next several days. So let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic as the sun is setting this evening, we notice that this is Tropical Storm Fiona right here. This is our system still devoid of convection around that low-level circulation this evening. This will be moving generally westward across the tropical Atlantic over the next few days and will be impacting portions of the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, the U.S. British Virgin Islands, and portions of Hispaniola. So let's look at the visible satellite here zoomed in. We noticed that this evening there was a burst of convection that was pretty close to that low level circulation, but that convective burst died out shortly after. But we noticed that this is the low level circulation this evening, again, mostly devoid of any significant convection. However, the latest recon plane that was in there did find that pressures were around 1,005 to 1,006 millibars. And in fact, there is some pretty strong wind up here on the northern side. And in fact, there was a couple of 65 knot or hurricane force flight level winds that were found on the far northeastern side of the circulation. Very rare because the circulation is pretty devoid of convection, and as you might imagine here, that these flight level winds are definitely not mixing down to the surface because of the fact that we just don't have any substantial convection. Nonetheless, there has been enough sufficient evidence to raise the mile per hour now to 60. So this is now strengthened. If we look at the track forecast here, again, so now we are at 60 miles per hour and pressure down to 1,005. This is still moving off towards the west at 14 miles per hour, and we have new watches and advisories that have been issued. So first of all, we have tropical storm warnings now in effect for most of the northern part of the Leeward Island chain, and then we have a tropical storm watch for portions of Puerto Rico and the U.S. British Virgin Islands, and we will likely see additional tropical storm watches issued for portions of Hispaniola over the next day or two. We notice that the current forecast track has this moving in at about 60 to 65 miles per hour. Some strengthening towards the end of the forecast period is possible. Then this tries to make a turn more towards the north and west here as this is crossing Hispaniola sometime Monday into Tuesday and could likely be out here somewhere near the Turks and Caicos by late in the afternoon on Tuesday. So this is certainly something to watch for portions of Bermuda and the Turks and Caicos. And there's a lot of uncertainty with the track and intensity, which we'll get to here in a second. If we look at the overall tropical cyclone advisories here, we notice that there is a tropical storm watch issued for portions of Puerto Rico today, or all of Puerto Rico rather. And then we also have a tropical storm watch for the U.S. British Virgin Islands as well. We also have a tropical storm warning in effect for portions of the northern Leeward Island chain here. This does not include any far south there as St. Kitts. But we do have a tropical storm warning in effect for the northern part of the island chain, and then additional watches and warnings will likely be issued for Puerto Rico, upgrading that watch to a warning, and also for Hispaniola as well will likely be included in that tropical storm watch sometime tomorrow. Now, if we look here at the overall threat impact, again, there's an elevated to significant risk of impacts across portions of the U.S. British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola. With this far southern trajectory that the storm will be taken south of Puerto Rico, this is going to increase the rain and wind threat for Puerto Rico and portions of Hispaniola. And if we look at the overall sustained wind forecast, we are expecting across portions of the northern Leeward Islands about 45 to 50 miles per hour, about 50 to 55 across portions of Puerto Rico and the U.S. British Virgin Islands. This is a little bit lower than what is forecast right now by NHC because, again, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the overall intensity forecast, and there still might be a chance that this actually weakens a little bit as this is moving through. And we'll talk about all of the intensity and track right this second. So if we look at the overall H4 forecast, this is a 12Z run here, valid for 8 p.m. this evening. We're looking at the 10-meter wind field, but we'll jump up to the 200 millibar wind, or basically looking at the overall upper level pattern, about 39,000 feet. We notice that here's our storm right now. Again, on the pressure on the H4, it was analyzing about 999. We noticed that it is a little bit higher than that this evening. But nonetheless, again, we can see the general pressure changes, but this has it trying to become a hurricane to the north and east of the Leeward Island chain. And I'm just not really buying this forecast. We noticed that there's not even a really favorable upper level look here. There's actually this trough right here, and that's actually going to induce more shear. There's a displaced cyclone here. I mean, it's just kind of a mess for this system. It's a big, gigantic mess, and that's not going to allow our storm to really intensify much at all. And if we look at the HFAS forecast here, this is an experimental product from NOAA and the Hurricane Research Division. We notice again some intensity changes do occur, but generally this remains weak. And in fact, even the HFAS completely loses this system south of Hispaniola and completely dissipates this system, which is entirely possible. If we look at the European forecast, we've seen some major changes today with the overall forecast trend. This is the 12Z run here, valid for 8 a.m. this morning. This is the analysis period. We'll move this out. It's about 24 hours from now. This is getting ready to cross into the island chain. Here is 48 hours, and then boom, 72 hours from now, this is the first major change. Again, we've seen the storm track try to go a little bit more south of Puerto Rico today and into Hispaniola. And this is going to be one of those things that, again, a far southern trajectory south of Puerto Rico brings all of the heavy weather and onshore flow into Puerto Rico, causing some storm surge, causing some heavy rainfall, tornadoes, just nasty flooding issues as well. And it doesn't take a major hurricane to cause significant problems there because of the infrastructure. And then this crosses over Hispaniola and reemerges on the other side, but stays at a very low latitude. And this is all in part if we actually look at the 500 millibar height anomalies here coming off the European ensembles. This is actually because the European especially tries to build this heat dome over here, and we talked about this in today's previous video, but there's a very big trough over here as part of the recurving typhoon near East India right now, and this is causing this heat dome to build and then expand off towards the north and east, and that will likely remain the case. And so our storm is going to have a little bit of a tougher time getting far towards the north, and there's a lot of solutions that are still on the table. If you look at the European ensembles, again, the European run here, one of the things that it tries to do is tries to spin up a more intense cyclone near the Bahamas at this point, which would be valid for next Friday. So we could be talking about a storm potentially next Friday that is in the Bahamas, or it is entirely possible that we have a dissipating system. If we look at the GFS solution, the GFS 18Z run is actually pretty similar. It's a little bit further towards the north overall and probably has a little bit of adjusting to do. But again, the same thing goes. Next Friday, we could be talking about a potential storm somewhere in the Bahamas. And if we look at the European ensembles here, the 12Z Euro ensembles, we notice that, again, a track south of Puerto Rico, this would bring some pretty significant rainfall, heavy wind, rainfall, the potential for flooding and tornadoes to the island of Puerto Rico. And then we notice, again, most of the clustering keeps it, south of Puerto Rico, right into Hispaniola. And only a few members here are suggesting this gets strong enough quickly to move out and away, and I'm just not really seeing that becoming a solution anymore. And so eventually we've got kind of two camps here. We've got this weaker solution, which the operational run follows, and then we've got this stronger solution further northward, catching that trough and riding it hopefully on out to sea it goes around Bermuda and Hatteras at that point. Again, a lot of uncertainty here. There's, a lot of models. Again, there's a lot of model spread here. I mean, you're talking a much stronger cluster here, and then this kind of secondary, weaker, but still impactful cluster that is further towards the south and west. And all of these members would suggest the potential for land impacts, especially to Bermuda, potentially Florida, and the United States southeast coast. So there's a lot that we have to watch over the next several days. Again, there's going to be a lot of different model runs that are going to be shared out there, but the biggest concern right now for me in the immediate term will be the U.S. British Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and portions of the Leeward Island chain, eventually Hispaniola, and then perhaps moving into the Bahamas within about 6 to 7 days. Beyond that is a little too uncertain to determine what, if any, impacts could occur for portions of the northern Bahamas and Florida at this time. So we have a long ways to go. It is going to be imperative that you continue to check back on the forecast because we have a long ways to go. All right. That being said, I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll be talking to you guys again some more tomorrow.